Hello, Marvel movie fans. Welcome to my review of the Invincible Iron Man. Yes, I know I had a poll and I said that, Iron Man was going to be the movie that I was going to cover, but I did not realize that there was an animated movie before the live action movie, and it was actually the year before. So I'm going to be covering the Invincible Iron Man instead. So last time, I believe, depending on when, I don't know when this is going to come out, but I may have, it might come out after a Miraculous Ladybug and Cat Noir review, a Spider-Man Let's Play, or maybe sometime during my summer special. I don't know, but whatever the case may be, that one of those is what I did last time. But today I'll be covering the first movie featuring the Iron Man character, simply titled The Invincible Iron Man, which was released on January 23rd, 2007. So, the short synopsis of the film is that Tony Stark, voiced by Mark Warden, an American industrialist and inventor, has made a fortune from his creations. While in China, though, Tony accidentally unleashes an ancient evil called the Mandarin, voiced by Fred Tatasciore. Now, to battle this malevolent evil back into submission, Tony must build the ultimate weapon. And so, the Iron Man is born. Surrounded by a high-tech armored suit, Tony sets out to destroy the Mandarin once and for all. Now, I'm not really sure how Iron Man or Marvel movie fans in general are about this film. I've never really seen it talked about, not from anywhere I've seen. I mean, so I don't know how fans feel about this film. So this is a completely new experience for me. I have not seen this movie before. So, let's take a look at the film and see whether I think it is a good or bad Iron Man movie. The movie begins with the excavation of ancient Chinese architecture in China. A worker, while working on it, hears a statue of the Mandarin whispering and runs away. We then cut to James Rhodes, who is watching the excavation from afar before talking with his project manager, Mr. Ling. Mr. Ling warns Rhodes that if the rivers continue to swell, the ruins could collapse, and Rhodes says that they are behind schedule because of the Jade Dragon's commando raids. So with the arrival of another shipment of steel, Rhodes tells Mr. Ling that they have enough to start pumping it under the excavation to raise the ancient city above ground. However, another Jade Dragon raid attacks the campsite, and Rhodes afterwards, after this raid attack, Rhodes calls Tony Stark, interrupting his romantic dessert with an attractive woman in a hot tub, or like bath or something. So Rhodes questions Stark on why he sent them a shipment of weapons, but Tony denies sending it and promises to fly over there to see it. However, Tony instead chooses to stay and visit with the board of directors. One of the board of directors, Boyer, questions their decision to give Tony his own advanced technology division. And to point this out, Boyer first brings up the spending on the excavation in China. However, Tony replies that the Chinese government is willing to pay 20 times more than what they are currently spending at Stark Enterprises. But then Boyer then questions Tony on the $500,000 spent on his secret project. But Tony says that this project is Stark Enterprises' future. So with Boyer not content with the answers, he asks the rest of the board of directors to shut down Tony's division. And of course, Tony pleads with his father, Howard Stark, but Howard sides with the board of directors, unfortunately. So Tony, of course, obviously leaves upset and angry. And later that evening, we cut to James Rhodes raising the ancient city of the Mandarin to ground level. And outside, the Jade Dragons are planning another attack with their master, Wang Chu, and he threatens a girl named Li Mei to make her take part in the raid because she's a bit hesitant to go along with it. She doesn't want to attack it, but he's being forceful with her, so she gives in and goes in with them. While Mr. Ling explains that some people fear that by raising the Mandarin's temple, you're basically inviting the Mandarin's rule to repeat itself. And during the Dragon Raid, Rhodey encounters Li Mei and knocks her down before she can shoot him. However, another Jade Dragon kidnaps Rhodey, and Pepper Potts delivers the news to Tony. And we saw Pepper earlier with Tony, when he was getting ready for the board of directors. So, with this news, Tony flies to China immediately and travels to the excavation site in an armored tank. They encounter an obstruction in the road and drive into the Jade Dragon's trap. And Tony Stark gets severely injured during this attack, and the Jade Dragons, of course, kidnap him. So Tony wakes up and finds he has suffered a great heart damage, and Wang Chu explains that they need Tony alive to lower the city. So he tells Rhodey, get Tony back or you're fucking done. We need him alive. He's the only one that knows how to get the city back up, so find a way to repair him, heal him. So, Rhodey ends up fashioning an iron lung for Tony. And during this, Li Mei shows some concern for Tony, and when Wang Chu sees this, he threatens to kill her. Because she's showing sympathy towards Tony. And they're not they don't want that. They don't like they want basically they're just they don't like the fact that he doesn't like the fact that she's showing sympathy, because probably in his mind he thinks it's weak. However, Li Mei's defiance facing death keeps her alive, and Wang Chu reminds her of her responsibility as a Jade Dragon. This obviously, keeps her from death, because, basically not giving a shit whether he kills her or not is, a pretty cool moment, honestly. It shows that she doesn't care if he kills him. And because she has a responsibility as a Jade Dragon, and, because she doesn't care about dying, he's letting her live, because probably in his eyes she's showing strength. So outside the Mandarin's temple, 4 of the 5 elementals awaken, and a Jade Dragon warns Wang Chu about it. Back at Stark Enterprises, a lawyer is talking to Howard Stark and tells him that the Chinese government is wondering how the Jade Dragons acquired technology from Stark Enterprises. And the lawyer suggests blaming the mishap on Tony Stark. Howard doesn't like this, suggestion, because it's his son, and despite the fact that they have a rocky relationship, Howard doesn't hate his son, and doesn't want, to place the blame on him. And he probably knows that Tony's not the person he knows his son well enough to know that Tony wouldn't do that. But the lawyer says that he's just looking out for Howard, and that Howard could easily be kicked off the board if they suspect him at all. Which is pretty crazy, that if they even are suspicious that Howard did anything, that he'll just be fucking kicked off, just based on suspicion rather than evidence. So Tony Stark eventually wakes up with his new iron lung and thanks Rhodey and Ho Yin for saving his life. Tony meets Li Mei as soon as she walks in, and she leaves as soon as he asks her why they're prisoners here. Why is he, Rhodey, and this guy named Ho Yin prisoners? Outside, Li Mei is remembering her inheriting her bracelet from her dying father, and her father kind of expresses anger for not facing the Mandarin when she failed to get the other rings, showing that she has a pretty bad past with her father, and that probably ties in her responsibility with the Jade Dragons. And the 4 elementals later on attack Trafalgar Square and steal a ring from a monk buried beneath the city. Back in China, Ho Yin explains the prophecy of the Mandarin's return to Tony. He basically explains that as the demon elementals recover the 4 bands of the underworld stolen by 4 monks upon the Mandarin's death, and Ho Yin gives Tony the location of the bands and urges Tony to stop the elementals. So he's basically a lot of faith on Tony Stark, and I'm sure. And this obviously sparks Tony's adventure. Wong Chu comes in, bursts right in, and forces Tony to come up with the technology needed to reverse what he had done to the Mandarin's ancient city. Basically saying, get it down, find a way, or we're gonna kill the people closest to you. And just to prove that he's not fucking around and his threats aren't meaningless, for added incentive, Wang Chu just flat out fucking shoots Ho Yin in the fucking head and kills him immediately, and threatens to kill Rhodey right in front of him as well if he doesn't fucking do it. So, but basically, however, during the following week, Tony and Rhodey aren't working on technology to obviously aren't working on technology to rise the city. They're working on an armor for Tony to wear during their escape. And when Wang Chu asks them to demonstrate their device, Roni starts adjusting its settings while Tony slips away. So they're basically Rhodey's basically the distraction, trying to create, a diversion, while Tony's, slips into the costume and uh, starts their escape. But Chu soon discovers, their deception and prepares to kill Rhodey right then and there. However, Li Mei ends up killing Wang Chu, which was really crazy and out of left field because honestly, I wasn't sure what was going to happen to Wang Chu, but it was crazy what Li Mei did. That she just flat out killed him right there. Wang Chu may have threatened her earlier, but she won't give him the same treatment. She's going to fucking shoot him when she gets the chance. So Wang Chu's guards pretty much appear and prepare to attack Rhodey, thinking that he's the one who shot Wang Chu, and now they're gonna kill him. But this gives enough time for Tony to start who's wearing the body armor, to start attacking them basically, and when they notice Tony and the Iron Man armor, they start shooting at him. But Tony Stark's armor deflects their bullets and he defeats them easily. However, before escaping with Rhodey, Iron Man tries to convince Li Mei to join them, but unfortunately she refuses, which is a good start to Tony and Li Mei's, relationship arc throughout the story. And it's a pretty good escape scene. Definitely probably one of the best scenes in the movie.
Whoa.
Tony.
Go. Leave.
Not without you.
Just get out of here. And promise me you'll never come back.
I won't leave you here.
Goodbye, Tony.
Come on, man. We gotta go.
Climb on.
So back at the Jade Dragon headquarters, Li Mei views the prophecy stating the Iron Knight will battle the Risen Mandarin, and that one of them will die in the battle. Obviously, one of her guards nearby, points out maybe it's Tony, in the Iron Man armor who just escaped. Of course, she doesn't want to even believe that. She doesn't want that to happen because she obviously cares about Tony and doesn't want him to get hurt. it's never explained what she sees in Tony that makes her, like him, but I'm assuming there's something about Tony that she loves, but it's never really established. But I can still buy, that she likes him because it doesn't feel forced. It does somehow feel natural, despite the fact that there's no, like, not really much build up on, what makes her like him. And Tony and Rhodey fly back home on a jet, but when they arrive, Shield Agent Drake puts them under arrest for dealing arms to the Jade Dragons, and he claims that they received documents linking Tony Stark to the sale of the weapons to the Jade Dragons. So now that they have evidence, Tony's pretty screwed right now, so he's got to find a way out. And after seeing Howard Stark, Tony and Rhodey are able to evade arrest by driving off in a bulletproof car that he, of course, designed and made. So thankfully, his father, was nice enough to help him escape. And we go back to a group of Jade Dragons who are now led by Li Mei, unaware that, she was the one who killed Wang Chu, who are going on a mission to destroy the Mandarin's temple. But of course, some of her members are kind of worried about the fifth elemental, which we haven't seen yet. And Li Mei reassures them that the fifth elemental will fall once they destroy the temple. So this fifth elemental must be a pretty tough cookie if these guys really fear them. And guess who the fifth elemental is? Fucking Fin Fang Foom, the dragon himself. Oh man, when I heard that, I was fucking ecstatic. Of course, Fin Fang Foom from. He was, of course, in one. I remember him from the Iron Man animated series. He was really good. He had a cameo in that, and he's been linked to the Mandarin a few times, so I thought it was a nice touch. He's obviously also been in Guardians of the Galaxy as well, so he's a pretty big Marvel villain, and just hearing that he was in this movie was enough to really get me on board. And Fin Fang Foom obviously quickly disposes of the Jade Dragons, all except Li Mei, who bows down to the dragon and pleads for his forgiveness, which I guess he accepts because he doesn't fucking kill her, at least not for now, anyways. So, back in America, as fugitives, Tony decides to go after the third ring, keeping on his promise with Ho Yin, feeling, that since he had him killed and that he was in the city, he feels it's his responsibility to get that third ring before, the elementals do. And he and Rhodey get into Stark Tower with the help of Pepper Potts because the fucking Stark Tower is surrounded with S.H.I.E.L.D. agents because they, not only are they investigating Tony's office, but, they're obviously expecting Tony to probably come back to get something. But Tony is able to open the entrance to a secret room and shows Rhodey his secret project, which is a series of interactive exosuits. And Tony takes the aquatic model suit, which is basically the underwater Iron Man armor, which, if you remember, that was also in the Iron Man animated series, which was really cool, to go get the next ring. However, Rhodey, tells Tony that he's frustrated that Tony didn't trust him enough to involve him in the project. And, I believe Tony said that he wasn't really sure if he could trust Rhodey with it, despite being his best friend, and he should have trusted Rhodey. And Rhodey feels like, Tony's kind of doing like what Howard does, where he's just thinking of himself and he's kind of not, allowing him to be in on his projects. And of course, Tony, obviously, despite being hated and being compared to his father, he acknowledges, his faults and tells Rhodey that, he won't hide anything anymore from him. He'll be upfront with him. And, and he trusts him obviously because Rudy's his best friend, and of course he's going to trust him, you know. But later on, the four elementals are uncovering the third ring at an undersea monastery in the Atlantic. So Iron Man dives in, and the Earth Elemental pushes him back, and this, of course, starts our fight. And when the Fire Elemental attacks Iron Man fights back and destroys that elemental, meaning that's one down. So only three more to go, not counting Fing Fang Foom, of course. The Air Elemental pushes Iron Man into the monastery, and the Earth Elemental caves the monastery in. And although Iron Man does not get crushed during the cave in, the room floods with water, and his armor supports start to fail. It's obviously bad because he has an iron lung. So he needs that life support, that suit to help him with his life support, or he's going to fucking die. And Iron Man uses his rocket jets to escape the watery grave, and he's able to return to the Hall of Armors. And Tony, being frustrated with losing, and thinking about all the decisions he's made in this movie, he's obviously he blames himself, saying it's all his fault for raising the city. He, he shouldn't have raised it. He's caused a lot of problems, not just for himself, but for Rhodey and Howard and the company, and Pepper, and everyone close to him, even Lee May, and the person he was with, Ho Yin, in the cave, and obviously Tony wants to vent his frustration, so he takes his frustration out on his father, for the about the phony arms deal, and he blames his dad for the arms deal. Saying that Howard was the one that told Shield about him making the arms deal, and or him ordering weapons. But Howard obviously denies the arms deal. But he does say that Rhodey did need arms to protect his crew from the Jade Dragon attack. So, although he wasn't the one who did it, at least from what he says, he doesn't disagree with having weapons there, because Rhodey obviously needed help, and Tony wasn't giving it to him. But obviously Tony, hates weapons. He doesn't want to give weapons to them because they could be used in a bad way. He knows firsthand how a weapon can hurt someone, especially those closest to him. So after this conversation, Tony leaves Howard's office, and Agent Drake finally spots Tony, surprisingly, and he trails Tony on his way back to the Hall of Armors, but Tony manages to evade him with the help of Pepper, because Pepper, I think, trips him up. He trips up Agent Drake, and Agent Drake, obviously frustrated and upset that he missed Tony, and because Pepper helped Tony escape, Pepper gets arrested by Agent Drake for assisting Tony. So to get the fourth ring, Rhodey volunteers to lure the SHIELD agents away while Tony flies to Central America. Obviously, Tony's very skeptical about letting Rhodey take the fall, but somebody has to get the SHIELD agents away, because Tony won't be able to go to Central America without any transportation, and the transportation's on the roof. SHIELD agents everywhere, so somebody's got to take the fall, and obviously Rhodey is willing to take that fall if it means Tony can save him. So he does, and this time Tony takes the heat-resistant armor, and he uses the heat-resistant armor of Iron Man to fly to the center of an active volcano, and he finds the three remaining elementals. Iron Man witnesses the Earth Elemental putting the ring in his belt, and the elementals notice Iron Man and attack Iron Man, sending him on a rock drifting over lava. The air elemental materializes behind Iron Man and grabs him. However, Iron Man resists his grip long enough to evade the water elemental's attack, which in turn destroys the air elemental. So that's 2 down and 2 left. So Iron Man grabs the water elemental and sends him into the lava. Well, that's 3 down. Shit, they're dropping like flies. So we got 1 left, which is probably the toughest one and the one that Tony's had to deal with a lot of, which is the Earth Elemental. So Iron Man attacks the Earth Elemental and he manages to destroy its head and take the ring from its belt. However, the Earth Elemental, being that it's made up of Earth property, basically the dirt, the ground, can rebuild its head and grow it back. So he continues attacking Iron Man until he manages to fly away, and Iron Man gets away, but with the ring obviously, but the Earth Elemental is obviously trying to go after him, so he's got to escape, and with his armor all fucked up, he's got to go on foot. But by some stroke of luck, Tony's able to get back to the Stark Tower. He's able to fly back, get to his transportation and fly back. But he still finds that he's still wanted, which honestly isn't surprising. I mean, it's not like Tony's status as a fugitive was really going to change much unless if somebody came forward with evidence. So, if Tony wants to prove himself innocent, he's going to have to stop all this. And Lee May, out of nowhere, actually approaches him and urges him to give her the ring because Lee May believes it to be her responsibility. But Tony doesn't want to do that. He feels that it's also his responsibility, so he wants to go with her because, of the promise he made to Ho Yin earlier in the film and, for what he's done the whole film. So Tony calls his father, asking him if he can find a way to get him in. However, Howard, secretly warns Tony to go away, even though, because there's S.H.I.E.L.D. agents around him telling him, obviously wanting him to tell Tony to come in. But, secretly he's warning Tony, don't come here. They're going to catch you. They're going to arrest you. Go stay away. So instead, Lee May and Tony steal a jet, and Tony dons the old Iron Man armor from the beginning of the film, which is the silver armor, the big silver armor from the beginning. So we're going back to Iron Man's first armor, which is pretty cool. And they eventually get to the Mandarin's monastery, and when they get there at the Mandarin's monastery, the Earth Elemental uncovers the Mandarin's army, and Iron Man attacks the Elemental from the sky, but he just gets up out of the crater and picks Iron Man up, and Iron Man flies up into the sky, and the Earth Elemental holds on to him. So Iron Man starts falling out of the sky, and the Earth Elemental prepares to crush him. However, Iron Man starts flying up straight toward the Earth Elemental, and he fires his energy blasters. And so finally, after using his energy blasters, are able to do the trick, and he defeats all the 4 elementals, but that still leaves one, Fin Fang Foom, obviously. And the 4 rings fall to the ground, all the ones that the Earth Elemental had, plus Tony, having it as well. And Iron Man offers them to Lee May, preparing to recover the 5th ring. However, we get a nice twist where Lee May informs Tony that her bracelet is the 5th ring, and she reveals that she's the one who gave the government the documents about the arms deal, so that they would arrest him, and he wouldn't come here, he wouldn't be in the way, he wouldn't be in harm's way and danger. So she did it to protect him. So basically, Lee May's goes into the monastery to resurrect the Mandarin, leaving Iron Man to fight the army of statues and Fin Fang Foom. So this twist obviously shows that Lee May from the beginning was trying to resurrect Mandarin, and despite being part of the Jade Dragons, didn't wanted them to lose, but also didn't want to, but also wanted Tony to take it out of the way. So it's pretty lots of shit going on. But Iron Man freezes the Fring Fang Foom with the sonar beams use to raise the city from the ground, which is really cool. I love the fight Iron Man has with Fin Fang Foom, and of course I would. I mean, it's two classic characters going up against each other. And the fact that Iron Man was able to freeze Fin Fang Foom and, fucking defeat him was awesome. So that's all five elementals taken care of, which only leaves, saving Li Mei and, taking care of the Mandarin. However, Tony arrives too late because the Mandarin possesses Li Mei's body. She begins, she did, she gets all the rings back. She resurrects the Mandarin. He possesses her body and tells Li Mei to finish Iron Man off. Obviously, fulfilling the prophecy from earlier of the Mandarin fighting Iron Man. But Tony urges, Li Mei to fight the Mandarin's control, reminding her that she is Li Mei and that she's a person. She's not, the Mandarin's descendant. She's not, well, she is, but she's not the Mandarin's puppet. She's not, you know, just a tool to be used. She's a person with her own, thoughts and ideas and, actions, and she can, fight this off. She doesn't have to let the Mandarin take control. So, resisting the Mandarin's control, Li Mei, you know, eventually, gives in and takes off the rings, and the Mandarin disintegrates. But unfortunately, in the process, Li Mei dies in Tony's arms, which is a pretty, emotional scene for Tony, and it definitely is a heartbreaking scene. Despite the fact that they were only in this movie and we didn't get much from Li Mei, I did buy into their relationship, and I did feel bad that she died. But of course, I wasn't surprised by it, and it was a somber ending for Tony. But not everything's bad, because we of course cut to the next boardroom meeting where Boyer says that he's happy that the Chinese government has cleared Tony of all charges. And Boyer says that over the last week, someone has been buying so much stock from Stark Enterprises that they no longer have a controlling interest. And so he questions Tony: is Tony the holder? Is he the one who's buying? Is he the stockholder? Is he the one who's buying all Stark Enterprises stock. And of course, Tony admits that he is the stockholder, but Boyer thinks, it tries to warm up to him, basically tries to forget everything he said in the beginning and tries to, get on Tony's good side. But Tony's not having any of that, and he gives two orders of interest. He first says that he wants to promote Rhodey to chief engineer of advanced technologies, and he wants to hand control to the company to Howard Stark, which is a great cap off to Tony and Howard finally as a father and son duo, finally getting their relationship patched up, and they're back on good terms again. And it feels like now that Howard and Tony are finally on a good terms, and it's really nice to see how they've grown throughout the film, and it's really cool. And I always love to see Tony, you know, and Howard overcome their differences and come back to being that good father son duo. And the movie ends with Howard's first order of business to fire all the board of directors for how they treated Tony and Howard throughout this movie. And I don't blame Howard one bit for doing that, because they're all pieces of shit that are just trying to get on everyone's good side. I'm going to give the Invincible Iron Man 2 stars out of 5. So since this is a 2-star movie, we're going to start with the positives first. To start, I really like the heroes in this. Mainly, Toady, Rhodey, Howard, and Lee May. And the relationships they have. The relationship between Tony and Rhodey is great. I really like their friendship. It's very wholesome and very great to watch. It's always great to see how they interact with each other, and this movie did a good job capturing their friendship. I also like Howard and Tony's relationship in this movie, and how their father and son relationship became stronger throughout the film. At first they're very distant. They kind of aren't really that close. After Tony's mom died, and as the film goes on, Howard begins to show how much he cares about Tony, and Tony sees that, and recognizes that, and 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 tries to be a just as good of a son to Howard, and trying to make sure the company is run well by these two. And I really like that, because they always show Howard and Tony kind of not seeing eye to eye, and how Howard wasn't very much a father that seemed to care about his son, but on the inside, Howard did truly care about his son. He just never really showed it, and he was a very business-like man. But I just love how they did in this movie. It was great. And also, I like Tony and Lee May's relationship, and how he wanted to help her break out to of her destiny and become an independent person who led her own life. You know, rather than letting the Mandarin or her family legacy, or any of the Jade Dragons control her destiny, he wanted her to be her own person, and just live her own life. And the fact that how that this relationship somehow blossomed so well, considering Tony only met her in the cave with Rhodey, and then when they escaped, he didn't see her again until he had almost all the rings. So it was pretty crazy, but I think the relationship worked well, because when you figure out all the stuff Lee May tried to do, and that Tony didn't figure that out, but he still treated her well when he was captured, and always, and seemed to genuinely care about the people around him in that cave. It was really great, and somehow the relationship was just really good and strong. And I think that the twist, kind of made it a pretty cool narrative choice for their relationship as well. Although there's also a negative side to that, which I will get to eventually. But yeah, and then I also kind of have a minor positive. with one of the action scenes, and that's with Iron Man fighting Fin Fang Foom. I believe I showed it in this review, but obviously I love that because Iron Man's fighting a pretty a classic dragon like Fin Fang Foom is pretty cool, and I always like to see Iron Man go up against all of his classic known enemies. So it was nice and good action, but it was really the only fight scene that I was engaged with because the other ones were just kind of lackluster and didn't really do much for me. But I'll get into that probably later. So I think I got all the positives out of the way, so I think it's about time we get into the negatives. Now, the first negative I'm going to start off with is I didn't like the story of the film at all. Because here's my issue with the story. It changed a lot of key elements of Iron Man's origin story. And while I have not yet read, the original Iron Man comic books, I am at least pretty familiar with the Iron Man origin story and have a good idea of it. It's been told a few times in many different media. So I can tell which one is the true origin story and which one isn't. And I can tell you this is not the true Iron Man origin story. And to be quite honest, it wouldn't have been bad if it was just maybe some minor changes, maybe one or two. But they changed a lot. That it made it, kind of boring and uninteresting because the Iron Man origin story is supposed to kick off Tony's adventure to become Iron Man, to drive him, to make him, change his ways and become, a different person. It's just, it was really a really bad choice to change the origin story. And it at first, like, the origin story, during the origin story, you're led to believe that Iron Man and the Mandarin will be facing off against one another. You think there's going to be a battle. You think Iron Man and Mandarin are going to have a showdown in this film. You think Mandarin is probably going to have more of a presence throughout this movie, but no, that didn't happen. Instead, we had three different villains throughout the story, and the only time the Mandarin appeared was briefly at the end of the to fight Iron Man, and that wasn't even him. That was him in Li Mei possessing her. So when I mean so you got the Jade Dragons in the beginning, then they're kicked out. Then you have the Elementals, and they get fucking kicked out. And then surprise, surprise, Li Mei becomes the third villain for a little bit. And and you could argue the Mandarin was technically the third villain, but yeah, he wasn't in it long enough for me to even consider that. He barely was in the movie, and considering how much he was talked about and hyped about, I was really expecting something big between him and Iron Man. I mean, this is Iron Man's greatest foe, his greatest enemy, and they didn't do anything with him. How could you screw up the Mandarin this bad? It's just really disappointing because it wouldn't have been bad had they led you to believe that Iron Man was going to be, this was going to be an Iron Man Mandarin movie. If it had been something different, if they were trying to go for something different, that would have been fine. But this movie was trying to set up that Iron Man and Mandarin were going to fight each other. And that really didn't happen. Instead, Iron Man only did a little bit of fighting, and not even to the Mandarin. The Mandarin was just possessing Li Mei's body, and he was just trying to persuade Li Mei to get Mandarin out of the body, and to be your own person and shit like that. So that's all that really happened. And it's weird because it builds up like this big battle that Iron Man and Mandarin were going to fight each other. I was kind of hoping that would happen, but it never did, and it really sucked because it made it not a good story and very uninteresting. Just like how the Iron Man origin story was changed. I mean, you have Rhodey getting captured along with Tony, which alright, fine. Maybe one little small change is fine. So rather than Yinsen, who helped cured Iron Man, gave him the arc reactor, instead Rhodey gives Iron Man an iron lung, which isn't really an arc reactor. He doesn't even have one, actually. I don't even think. I think his lung is just replaced with a makeshift lung. And Ho Yin, I mean, he's sort of supposed to be the Jensen type character, and he he's not the type. He doesn't fulfill that role well because honestly, Yinsen, when he was trapped with Tony in the cave, they were really getting to know each other. Tony was learning about this man's life. Yinsen was, um, t- uh, you know, trying to get Tony to become, giving him some, advice and telling him to be how to be a better person. Tony really was connecting with this guy, and he made him change his ways, especially when Yinsen died. Because when Yinsen died, that really motivated Tony to change his ways and become a different person and become the Iron Man character. Because he had lost someone deep to him, he cared about, because of his weapons, something he created. He lost someone he loved, and that's powerful. But that doesn't happen in this movie. Ho Yin just basically, him and Tony barely speak. He just tells Tony about the legend. No getting to know each other on a deeper level. Not trying to give Tony some advice you know help each other escape and really becoming close friends. Nothing like that. Just simply tells Tony the map where it is. Tony listens, although he's skeptical at first, and then he fucking gets blown. His fucking brains get blown out. He basically gets shot in the head, and he's done. That's it. And the thing is, they did that. I honestly wasn't even surprised after the way they introduced him that they fucking shot him in the head so quickly. Because honestly, I was like, you know what? If you're not even gonna build on this guy, just fucking kill him. And they did, but it was such a waste. You would think that they would have done that character better, but no, they just shoot it. They kill him off, and that just really sucked. And that made the Iron Man origin story not good because Tony, all he's fighting for in his escape is Rhodey, and Rhodey's a great guy. But the thing is, I think it was more powerful with Yinsen because this is a guy he didn't know and finally got to know. And then when he finally got to know him, and they were going to escape, and they were going to get him back into society, and Tony was going to change how he did things, he lost that guy. He lost the guy he got close to in that cave, and now to his weapons, to the thing he created, to the thing he got money off of, the thing that made him such not an arrogant, cocky person. And so he changed that, and and pretty much is on a mission to get all of his weapons done. He doesn't want to make any more weapons. And in the beginning of this movie, Tony already has a disdain for weapons, which is kind of weird because I feel like the disdain for weapons for Tony would be better if it was, gradual. I'm not saying he needs to love weapons. Maybe he's a bit hesitant, but he's like, okay, it's making money, let's do it. And maybe they're just trying to do something different, but I don't know. The different approach they were going with the Iron Man origin story to me just didn't fit, and I just didn't really like how they told it, and I didn't like how the perspective, the story changed to 3 different villains rather than focusing on the Mandarin being the main villain and having the Elementals be like his little servants that Iron Man gets rid of, and Ping Fang Foom, and then he faces off against the Mandarin. That I think would have been cooler, but no, none of that shit. Just fucking 3 different villain groups, and then that's it. I gotta be honest, I also think the action kind of sucked too. Every battle that Iron Man had, except for Fing Fang Foom, was boring and it wasn't engaging. It really stinked, and it could have just been because they kept changing villains. And the thing is, the elementals are different. They're different powers. One's air, one's water, one's fire, and one's earth. But do you see what I just did there? That basically just sounds like Avatar: The Last Airbender. Just 4 different just the four generic, type of powers. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not that those aren't unique. They are, and you know, when they have different, power, four different powers, that's at least somewhat unique. But the problem is that they're just not interesting because they're not the central villain for the entire story, but they also don't have any type of personality or anything for me to latch onto. I have no villain to fucking latch onto because this movie refuses to stay on one villain. So it makes the action boring because when Iron Man takes care of these elementals, I don't give two shits because I don't know anything about them. I'm not invested in it because I don't know anything about these elementals. They're just servants to the Mandarin. And that would have been fine if the Mandarin was the main villain, and he wasn't. The only reason Fin Fang Foom was interesting was because he's like a legendary character, and he at least somewhat had a personality, albeit very not big, but he was in it at least, had something. And look, we gotta get to the villains because I think I need to address the villains even more. So the lack of the central villain not only makes this is my final negative, by the way. The lack of a central villain really fucking sucks. It really makes the plot messy, and it makes the characters uninteresting. So, like I said earlier, first you have the Jade Dragons, who aren't compelling to watch. They're just this terrorist group. All right, fine. Maybe like a little warm up to get you going. Um, maybe it would have been fine had they just been only to Tony's origin story, and then when Tony, escaped, they were kicked out. I think that would have been fine. Or they just been, the Mandarin's servants or something. But nothing like that. I mean, you have the leader guy who, he's kind of generic, if I'm going to be quite honest. Nothing about him was even interesting. I mean, he just kind of abused Lee May, telling her this is her destiny and her responsibility, and she knows why she's here. And then she fucking kills him to save Tony and Rhodey, which was cool for her character and build on it, but it also didn't, make him interesting. And there was none of the Jade Dragons really had any interesting ones. The only one interesting was surprisingly May, but she was hardly a big factor of that group. She was only in it for a little bit. And then you have the Elementals, which I already said although they have those cool powers, they don't use it in an engaging way, and it really sucks because it's just very generic. Sure, they have little team ups against Iron Man to make it maybe more difficult, but Iron Man just wastes these guys one by one easily, and that's not really an issue. The issue is that I don't give a shit about any of these elementals. I'm not invested in them. They're not interesting in the slightest. And like I said, had they been servants to the Mandarin and the Mandarin been the main villain, that would have been sufficing. But instead, we have the fucking elementals as the main villains for the second portion of the movie, and they're not interesting in the slightest. The only one who's interesting, like I said, is Fin Fang Foom. Albeit barely, but he is the only interesting one. And then finally, you have surprisingly the Mandarin, which honestly I didn't even think he was going to even fucking show up in this movie. But like I said, he really wasn't even the main villain. I mean, you would hope that he was the main villain. You would hope that this would be the big bad for Iron Man. What a great start! This is how, if you're going to make the first animated Iron Man movie, Mandarin is a perfect first villain to go with. Sure, you might be jumping the gun. Maybe you want to start something small in case it doesn't work out. But Mandarin is really a nice idea. But they didn't do him right, which is a problem. You think, but instead of making him the main villain throughout this film and making him this awesome villain, this awesome presence for Iron Man to go up against, making Iron Man realize his mistake, and trying to fix it because he brought the Mandarin back to life. Nope. Instead, the only thing he does, he possesses Lee May for a little bit. He and Iron Man get a little bit of a scuffle, and then Iron Man, helps Lee May get rid of the Mandarin, and he's gone. What a fucking waste of a character. Are you kidding me right now? all this build up for the Mandarin, and they just fucking throw it out the door. Don't even go through with it. Man, it's just crazy. You can tell that by this tone that there was a lot of missed potential in this movie, and a lot of stuff they didn't build on. Believe me, it had the stuff in the positives were great. I just wish they had, real. But those three big negatives: the story, the action, the villains, all were dropped the bomb on. And those are big, big elements to making me like a movie, and they just fucked it up. But anyways, overall, I don't recommend this film to fans and newcomers of Iron Man or Marvel in general. So, while it has some good stuff in it, like I said, in my eyes, you know, I think personally it is a below average film. And honestly, it's only below average. It's only a 2 out of 5 just because of the heroes, their relationships, and the action. If any one of those were dropped on, it would have easily gone down to a 1. But those were the only things that kept it from a 1. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Please give it a like if you did. Comment down below your thoughts on the the movie. Um, do you love it? I would be interested to hear that if you actually do love this movie. Do you hate it? Where you're somewhere near me, where you think it's really, not a good film, or it's, downright awful. Or are you somewhere in the middle? Which one? So I'm curious for your thoughts. So make sure to leave your comment on what you think of the film and let me know. And subscribe for more Iron Man and Marvel content like this, or if you're just interested in any of my other content. And you can also follow me on Facebook, where I have polls for future videos, discussions about things we talk about on both my channels, and updates for both of my channels. And Twitch, where I hope to live stream in the future. So, like I said, I don't know when this is going to be uploaded, but most likely in my next video, I might have a King Kong review up. That's what I think will probably be up. The Treadstone video will probably be up before this, and then the King Kong review will be up afterwards. So, if you're interested in my review of the original King Kong, be on the lookout for that, and and tell me what you think of it. But anyways, guys, thanks for listening to what I had to say. Even though I was pretty, harsh on this film, like I said, there was good stuff in it. It just really dropped the ball on it. And tell me, your thoughts on it, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it as both an Iron Man and Marvel fan. But thanks for watching, and as always, peace out.